The Boy Who Grew Dragons by Andy Shepherd. Chapter 23. Attack of the Killer Leaf. I'd like to say it happened like this. We strolled into the end of the garden, picked up a few dragons, strolled back and had a good night's sleep in our luxurious tent. It didn't though. First of all, the face paint we'd been going to use for camouflage stripes had dried up, so we improvised with dirt. Only Kai soon realised that he'd accidentally used horse manure Grandad keeps for his roses. Well, it's better than dragon poo, Ted snorted. Yes, at least it doesn't explode, I added. We tried and failed to stifle our laughs. It's a good thing, said Kat, biting back a laugh. Animals won't smell your human whiffiness and run away, so it will help with sneaking up on the dragons. Then you smear yourself with it, said Kai, who was getting grumpier by the second. If you want to escape a T-Rex, you cover yourself in poo so it won't eat you, added Kat in a fit of giggles. So if a big mummy dragon turns up, you'll be the safest one of us all. I snorted so much at this point that the lemonade I'd been guzzling shot out my nose. Shh, Kat suddenly hissed, as the kitchen light flickered on. Grandad appeared at the window and stared out at us. A second later, he was at the back door. Everything all right? He asked. No one having second thoughts? I want you all to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed tomorrow. I've been looking forward to having some extra hands in the garden. Poor Grandad. I've been so busy looking after Flicker I'd hardly spent any time helping him in the last few weeks. We're all fine, Grandad, said quickly. Just, having a stretch before bed. We all started stretching our arms up and running on the spot like we were doing some manic exercise video. Grandad looked at Kai's poo-smeared face. For a second, his eyebrows furrowed, but then he said, Okie dokie, sleep tight then. I smiled at him, but the heat from the lye was already burning my cheeks. I just hoped the mud was hiding it. We'd all felt quite brave talking it through beforehand, but when we actually ventured down the garden, we kept a bit closer together than usual, and no one said much. We were all too busy listening. Nighttime noises are freaky. Things you don't notice in the day, like branches creaking in the breeze, suddenly make you twitchy. Every other tree cast a shadow that made it look like some terrifying monster was just about to jump out on us. So it wasn't surprising that we all shrieked in terror when a cat in Grimm's garden made a high-pitched yowl as we passed. When we got down to the end, we were all a little jumpy, to say the least. In fact, when a stray leaf drifted down onto Kai's hair, he started karate chopping the air with a mad panic, shouting, Something's got me! Get it off! Get it off! Get it off! At which point we all leaped as if we were being attacked, until we finally figured it out. At least laughing about the attack of the killer leaf made us relax a little bit. As we crept towards the dragon fruit tree, we began to realise we were not alone. Strange, dark shapes flitted above us, careering about and darting over our heads and crisscrossing under the branches of the trees. At first we thought they were bats, but when one of the winged creatures dived towards Kai, it soon became clear that they were dragons. A whole flock. Herd, flight, I don't know what you call a mass of baby dragons. Whatever you call it, we had one right there. I looked round at the others. Kat had her hands plastered over her open mouth, trying to hold back a squeal that was threatening to escape. Kai was standing, staring up into the trees. He was wider than a wide-eyed lemur who'd just sat on a drawing pin. And Ted looked like a cat who'd not only got the cream, but a huge bowl of sardine trifle too. A few of the dragons were simply flying off up into the moonlit sky, but others had obviously decided to stop for a bite to eat. It was easy to see why Grimms thought that he was the victim of vandals. The dragons were not exactly bothered about the mess they were making. They had even finally found a way into his greenhouse and were happily demolishing his new tiny shoots. I knew exactly who'd be the ones getting the blame for that. Sparks fizzled into the night air as the dragons darted from one plant to the next. Quick, said Ted, waking up from his gazing. Get the nets! We dashed around, fruitlessly trying to capture the flittering dragons in our fishing nets, but they were too speedy for us. We staggered about the garden, tripping over brambles and landing in muddy heaps. It's no good, cried Kat. We'll never catch them like this. She watched sadly as other dragons zipped over her head and flew up and away into the night. Suddenly, there was a flump, and we turned to see that one of the fruits dropped from the tree. A second later, the red spiky skin began to bulge, and then, just like with Flicker, the fruit burst open and out shot a little grey dragon with yellow spines. Before any of us could get to it, it had darted away. We made our way over the dragon fruit tree and gathered round it, eyeing up each of the fruits still left hanging there. A handful of them were fat and red ripe. All we had to do was wait. Chapter 24. Here be dragons. But as you already know, some of us aren't very good at waiting. Maybe we could pick them like apples, Ted suggested, prodding at a low-hanging fruit. Perhaps the dragons only hatch when they come off the tree. They have to fall off, Kat said. You can't pull them off before they're ready. Why not? Ted asked. They look ripe. Thomas, tell him, Kat urged. Okay, what did you do, Thomas? Ted asked. Flicker's fruit just came off in my hand, I said, remembering how I'd held it gently and lifted it aside, out the way of the others. Kat was frowning at me, while Ted gave me a knowing look. They obviously didn't believe me when I said it had just dropped off. I was sure I hadn't pulled it off, though. At least I hope I hadn't. I looked at Flicker, who was still almost as tiny as the day I found him, and suddenly wondered if he had hatched too soon. Maybe he wasn't growing properly. Maybe it was because of me. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea. Kat cupped her hands gently around one of the fruits. This one feels too hard to be ripe. I think we should leave them, she said. Until they're ready. We can come back tomorrow. And I hope they don't drop off and hatch and fly away in the meantime, you mean? Said Kai crossly. If that's what it means, yes, said Kat sternly. I could tell the twins were about to lock horns. I kept my eyes on the dragon fruit and Kat's hand. Oh wait, Kat, look, I said. It's glowing. And not only that, the fruit was no longer attached to the tree. I didn't pull it off, Kat cried immediately. But before any of us could reply, the fruit started to bulge. A minute later, with a loud pop, the thing exploded. We stood open-mouthed, splattered in spray of the fruity pulp. And there on the ground was a tiny purple dragon, covered in sticky, seedy goo. Kat let out an excited screech, and the dragon stretched his neck and raised its long, elegant head, sniffing the air. When it opened its wings, we could see the shades of purple lightening into beautiful electric blue. The pattern swirled like the tie-dye t-shirts we had made in art. This dragon had fewer spines than Flicker, but under its jaw were spikes, hanging down like icicles. Quick as a flash, Kat gathered it up in her hands, delighted. As she scraped the sticky pulp off the dragon's wings, Ted and Kai started reaching out for the other fruit left on the tree, feeling each one in turn. Careful, I cried. Just be careful. At first, nothing happened. None of the fruits did anything, but then one of the ones Kai was holding, flickered and began to glow. Kai's hand sagged as the weight fell off onto his palm, and then, pop, another dragon shot out. This one was a vivid greeny blue with scales that glistened like the sea on a really hot day. Look at its wings, Kat whispered. They look like peacock feathers. And she was right. Although not actually feathers, the detail on the wings formed a feather design, and there were shapes like yellow and blue eyes leading to the outer edge, just like on a peacock. Ted's eyes stayed fixed on the tree as he was looking for one of the perfect fruit. He reached up to squeeze a few of the redder ones. Ow! He yelled, drawing his hand out fast. Rotten tree bit me. I laughed. It's got some fierce thorns on it. He sucked at the scratch, but since he had a mouthful of marshmallow, his hand came away covered in pink stickiness. Undeterred, he thrust his hand back in. It brushed one of the fruits, and he stifled a yell of excitement as the fruit suddenly shone, as if his touch had turned it into gold. Carefully, he cradled his hands, holding his breath, and then, just like the others, almost as if it had chosen his hand to fall into, the fruit let go of the tree. It immediately started to swell up, the red skin stretching under the pressure of the creature wriggling inside, fighting its way out. And then it burst, sending a spray of pulp all over Ted. But he didn't look as if he minded one bit, as he held up a slender yellow dragon. The shine from its golden scales made his hands glow brightly. He stared at it, his mouth hanging open. Not to get all poetic or anything, but if you'd been able to hold a bit of the sun, this is what I imagined it'd be like. Only without the hand-melting heat, of course. Standing there, holding our dragons, we looked at each other with stupid grins plastered over our faces. I had to admit, it was going to be pretty cool to all have dragons. Chapter 25 is called Grand High Dragon Master. I hope you're all having a great start to your holiday and you've managed to get out in the sun lots. It's been really good weather so far. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in September. See you later on.